What's up, everyone? Thank you for checking out this episode of Raised A Geek. Now that we are halfway through Ahsoka, we thought it'd be a great time to talk about the Ahsoka episodes 3 and 4 and deep dive into that mid-season cliffhanger. So let's get into it. I'm Chris, and as always, I'm here with my buddy Don. How we doing, man?
Chris, what is up today, my friend? Everything is well. Everything is okay. Um, yeah, man, just having myself a weekend here on this Saturday. Happy Saturday and weekend to you.
Same to you.
How are you? What's going on?
Good, man. Just kind of been chilling all day. Rewatched Ahsoka episodes 3 and 4 so we could talk about it, and just kind of wanted to wrap my head around what happened in these episodes, and get my thoughts completely ready for the people listening out there. I found a butcher
Oh,
that I went to last week because I was like, we keep buying meat at the supermarket.
okay. You're talking about a meat butcher. I was just making sure you're not talking about like a serial killer.
I was going to say, what other kind of butcher is there? Like a meat
Mhm.
market.
Okay.
But we were always buying meat at the grocery store that's here, and like it seems like no matter how long or what we do, every time we go to open it up to make it, it smells bad, and we're like, what the hell? So it always just seems like we're wasting all of this meat because the store that we shop at just, I don't know, just not happy with their meat. So I was like, I need to find like a meat market and go get something from somebody who like cares about the meat and hopefully better quality. And I went last weekend and got some a bunch of stuff and ate it all, and it was all delicious. So I was like, I want to go back to the meat market, get some
So do you want,
stuff.
so do you want to shout them out by name, like get us a sponsorship, or what's the deal here? Do you are they gonna start running ads for them over here?
Yeah, maybe.
I'll do it.
I honestly can't tell you what it's called right now.
Okay. Well,
It starts with an S.
San Antonio Butcher.
Butcher. So yeah, but it's just kind of been fun. So now I was like, all right, I'm gonna barbecue up some ribs, and I got the grill going. And
Like a butcher is like one of the last American like old jobs when you think about like how like I don't know, you could just have a job like that and have a house and have whatever like back in the day. Like he's a butcher, he has a butcher shop,
yeah,
but he has this
raises a family of 6.
on his butcher salary.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sam the Butcher on the Brady Bunch. I always used to think about that, the way they always talk about that. He was a butcher.
Yeah,
Alice's boyfriend. Sam the Butcher.
that is not how I saw this conversation going,
Me
but
either.
I'm glad we got. But yeah,
Oh no,
you look
no,
like you're about
yeah.
to say something. I was ready.
Something just popped in my head the other day when I was reading, and this is like a video game thing, real quick. But I saw that. Did you realize that the last? Do you remember what the last Sega system was?
The Dreamcast.
Dreamcast, right? It came out on 9/9, so this is the anniversary 9/9/99. So it's
Mm-hmm.
been 24 years now since the last Sega system.
God,
Doesn't that
that's
seem a little
crazy.
crazy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
never
feel
had a
like the Dreamcast is that old.
I never had a Dreamcast. Like I didn't go down that road. Like I had the Saturn, famously we talk about and laugh about. That was like, I don't know, for people who don't remember, like in the first gen of the new systems, like PlayStation was there and Nintendo 64 was there, but people forget the Saturn was mixed into.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
remember that Christmas vividly.
yeah, that was a which one do I want? Which one can I ask mommy to get me?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't have my own money.
Yep. Which
Um,
one? Which one do you go for?
yeah. I just thought it was wild that Sega hasn't had a system in 25 years. Like they used to be the big Genesis was almost bigger than Super Nintendo. Like
A lot
not
of
to
people it
us.
was.
We liked Super Nintendo more, but there's still a bunch of people like our age and older who are like Genesis.
Yeah, I was
Gotta
a
have a
Sega kid.
Genesis. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, that's crazy. It doesn't feel
yeah.
like that long ago.
You know.
Like I said, I got a Dreamcast, but like one of our friends, when he like moved out, he was like, I don't want this anymore. Do you want it? And I was like, sure. And he just gave me his Dreamcast and all his games. And I was like,
That's
cool.
hilarious. Yeah.
So I like have it, but I never really did much with it because it was already well dead by that point. So it's not like I could just go to the store and buy games. And do I really want to buy those? Sometimes I
Mhm.
struggle with paying the retro game prices.
Right. Right.
Like, do I really want to, pay $40 for Fighting Vipers?
Ooh, I remember Fighting Vipers. I had that bad boy for
Oh, yeah, we put a
Saturn.
lot of time into Fighting Vipers and Die Hard Arcade.
hmm
Put a
The
lot of
biggest
time in those
game
games.
The biggest game I remember from Dreamcast, like their flagship game, was like Knights. Remember
Yeah.
Knights?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like almost on the verge of that character becoming like a icon Sega, like the face of Sega, almost replacing Sonic. They wanted him to, I feel like, anyway. Like, hey, here's Knights. We got this cute little guy. This is our best game. Everybody
Little
play it.
flying jester.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's funny. Sega's still like kicking around. They're not in
Oh yeah.
the system making anymore, but they still, have Sonic and all those properties, and um so it's just funny.
Yeah, it's crazy to
Makes me
think
feel
about
old.
how long ago that
Yeah.
was. Yeah, definitely doesn't feel that long ago. But
Happy anniversary.
happy
Dream.
anniversary to the Sega Dreamcast. But Don, let's talk about some Ahsoka.
Okie dokie.
Before we do,
Mm-hmm.
walking it back one half step, if you have any thoughts about Sega Dreamcast, shoot us an email. Let's join this conversation and we can talk about the history of Sega. If you played it, if you haven't, but shoot us an email, raisedageek@gmail.com, or you can hit us on all of the social medias, YouTube's, Threads, TikToks, Instagram, Twitter, at Raised a Geek. We are everywhere. You can hit us up there, join the conversation, and
Mm-hmm.
review the show. All right, now that was awkwardly placed,
No, it was perfect.
Ahsoka, episodes 3 and 4. We already talked about the first two episodes, and I feel like based on that conversation versus the conversation I think we're going to have today, I think they're going to be very different. I feel
They
like
might be.
our first conversation was very, what is this show?
Yeah, what
Why
was
is it Rebels season 5? Who are these characters? Why are they doing what they're doing? Why am I confused? So my initial question to you coming into 3 and 4, are you still confused, Don?
Well, maybe a touch, but not to the level that I thought I was gonna end up being. I feel like that has kind of leveled out and balanced itself out. And now halfway through the season, even though these are characters that were conceived and originally debut as animation on shows I did not watch, I still now feel to this point that I kind of know them just from watching Ahsoka and the couple, videos I watched previously, and Disney Plus also came out with that Master and Apprentice thing just recently, like an 8-minute little behind the scenes thing. I watched that, so that helps a little, hearing some of the backstory behind Ahsoka's creation from Dave
Yeah.
Filoni and them. So yeah, through all that stuff, I'm not as lost or confused. And when they do mention something that maybe I haven't seen, where I'm just like, okay, that's from Rebels or that's from Clone Wars, it's okay to an extent, because it's not like a momentum killer anymore that I thought maybe it would be. It's like, okay, I'm just kind of like watching this show, and it's characters from a previous thing, but they're having this adventure now that I can watch and enjoy on its own separate merits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not as crazy as I thought it was gonna be, and like I was gonna be feeling that way through the entire series. Like, oh, I guess I had to watch Rebels. May get little tinges of that here and there, but it's not, you know, gonna deter me from trying to enjoy myself. I don't
No,
know
I
how
hear you.
you feel. The same,
I feel
similar,
the
or
same. My only shortcoming or thing I wish they did for this show was because it is based on these characters and so much hinges on whatever happened at the end of Rebels. Like clearly Ezra Bridger and Grand Admiral Thrawn disappeared.
right?
So by some means, which I don't know, and I don't need you to tell me because I actually am watching Rebels now, so I'll get there. But I don't know what happened to them. I know they disappeared. I know they were presumed dead, but I don't know why. And because I don't know why, there's so many of the characters' motivations that are based upon this like relationship that I have no insight into. Like I don't know why Sabine, it's like it's her friend. So are they lovers? Is it her brother? Are they family? It's just your friend? So she's like making these catastrophic decisions because her buddy's missing
Mhm.
and she wants to see her buddy. Like because I don't know like the level in which that relationship is, I have no context. And so much of the show is based around Hera's making decisions based upon her emotions and feelings towards like Ezra and Thrawn and like the passion that these characters have. I feel it. I feel it. I understand it, but I wish I understood more because I feel like there is more that if you watch Rebels and you were invested, you're getting so much more out of that. And mostly it's just bums me out because I want to be getting more out of it because I know it's there. So if anything, it's just a knock on me for not watching Rebels. But
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I was trying to think of parallels to this that maybe we've experienced. Um, it's like watching the sequel of something where you didn't see the first one.
yeah,
I'm sure that has happened before and you've enjoyed the sequel, but it's like I could be getting more out of this if I would have maybe watched the first one, you know?
yeah.
Which is what I usually try to do. Like if a part two of something is coming out and I want to see it, I was like, let me go watch the first one if I've never seen it.
But sometimes when it's something that you just don't give a shit about, and
Right.
you're just like I saw the first Fast and Furious movie. The first one I saw was the third one, the one without anybody in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, but then there were still little things where I'm like, wait, why is Vin Diesel showing up in this? And why is little things that happened in that movie where I'm like, oh, whatever. I mean, it's a bad example because who gives a shit? But
Yeah.
it's
Well,
Fast and Furious. But
like
still,
the Equalizer 3 is coming out, which looked interesting to me off a trailer. I could probably watch that without watching Equalizer 1 and 2. You know what I mean?
but
Probably. But if I did watch Equalizer 1 and 2, I would feel like more that I had the complete story and have seen the adventures of badass Denzel before I watched the new one. You know what I'm saying? So
yes, I 100% that is a much better example than the one I just gave. Because
yeah,
yes, I've not seen Equalizer 1 and 2, and I've dragged my feet on seeing 3 because I haven't watched the first two. But yeah, why is he retired in Mexico? Why is he, like hiding? What happened in the last movies? It's like trying to go into John Wick. I know you haven't seen any of those movies, but like those movies pick up from each other. Like when John Wick 3 came out, I never saw 2.
yeah,
So I literally watched it before. I was like, I'm gonna go see John Wick this afternoon because I need to go see John Wick 3. I watched the second one, like literally I finished it, got in the car and went to the movies to see the third one. And when the third one started and it was literally the end of the second one, like the
yeah,
second one ends with him running down the street and the third one starts with him running down the street. Like it literally picks up at the exact moment. And I was like, I'm so glad I watched the second one because there was a part of me that wasn't gonna. I was just gonna go see 3 and I would have been like, I
yeah,
mean, they would have caught me up and I would have been fine, but
yeah.
so much context would have been like it wouldn't have been as good. I would have spent the first half an hour going, "What's happening?"
The
It's on
craziest
me.
the craziest example of this to me, and this will be it before we move on to actually talk about the show. But like we watched all of Better Call Saul, and like I watched Breaking Bad. My wife never saw an episode of Breaking Bad, and she wanted to watch Better Call Saul. And I was like, "Don't you want to watch Breaking Bad? This is about like the character. This is Saul Goodman. He was a reoccurring character in this show. That's like his own show. It's all about him. Like he's all over that Breaking Bad show." She's like, "No, I'm good. Not interested." Like what? I can't really understand this. But her being a big fan of Bob Odenkirk was like the main reason behind it. I was like, he's great in that show too. Don't you want to watch it? Nah. I was like, why? But she made it through and enjoyed it and was just fine and didn't really have any like super questions. Like I just didn't want to watch it, and I can respect that. You
And
know
you
what I
really
mean?
didn't. I mean, the fact that it wasn't until like the end of that show where they kind of caught up with Breaking Bad,
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of good all the way up until that point. And at that point, you might want a little bit of context when they're like recreating scenes or moments. But did you need to? No.
She was like, "That's fine.
Yeah. Man, that
I
was a
don't care."
good show.
It was a good show.
God,
They were
that was
both
a
good shows.
Oh yeah, I watched both of them at the same
Yeah.
time, so
There you go.
went through a crazy binge there, um, which I do not do too often, but I was able to do those two. Anyway, Ahsoka, that's what we're here to talk about. If
Right?
you want to hear our thoughts on Better Call Saul, check back in
We
the
did talk about.
archives. We
We
did
did
talk
talk
about
about
that. There is an
that.
episode. We'd have a couple episodes talking about Better Call Saul, but I know we talked about that finale.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Ahsoka, we're halfway through the season now, Don.
Yes.
How you feeling about the show now that we're halfway through?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Which is a relief and you know, feels good to say because that has not been the case.
Mm-hmm.
We're on record as saying um, Disney Star Wars, for the most part, has been underwhelming to us to this
Mm-hmm.
point, with a few different standouts here and there. Like I like Mandalorian season 1, I like Andor, and now halfway through this season, I'm kind of thinking I'm gonna be putting Ahsoka in that short list of Disney Star Wars that has been fulfilling to me, because I don't know, I'm just really enjoying it. I think it's kind of got a good mix so far of everything you're kind of looking for in Star Wars. Like it's got a little bit of the political side with um the general and all the stuff she's doing, talking to different senators and stuff. It's got the Jedi stuff that you want. I know that gets kind of tiring, but sometimes it's just like the Skywalker family stuff. But like Jedis in general, I like that stuff. I like the Force. I like lightsaber fights. That's always
I
fun.
like the Force.
I
Force
really
is
like.
cool.
I like when they use the Force. I got more on the Force later, but it's got the Jedi stuff. It's got political stuff. I mean, there's some jokiness to it, but it's got like a quippy droid. It's got fights in the sky and spaceships, like rebel X-wings or whatever, not even X-wings, but you know what I mean, like ships shooting each other in the sky. For the first time we're seeing someone out on a standing on a ship actually fighting a ship with lightsabers. Like come on. So every little sub thing you like about Star Wars, this show kind of has a little bit of that, plus some strong performances I think so far from like your cast. So everything's kind of going right so far, and we can kind of talk about why we think why is this show succeeding where Obi-Wan couldn't, or Boba Fett couldn't. But so far everything's kind of working for me, so I'm happy about that. How about you? How you feeling 4 episodes in?
Feeling good, buddy. Feeling good. I'm really enjoying this show. I like it a lot more than I expected to. My interest was kind of low, but of course it's Star Wars, so I always am hoping for like that magic, that Star Wars. We've talked about it openly many times that like obviously the original trilogy is what it is. Everything else around it has its moments, but it's not great. And then, like I said, now we're coming into this Disney Plus era, and these last couple shows just haven't been good. It was like we kind of Andor was mixed in there, but as we came from Boba Fett to Obi-Wan, it's been a while. It feels like it's been a while. Like I
And
said, since
all those,
Mandalorian season 2 was enjoyable, Andor
yeah,
was in there, but then it
yeah.
seems like we had Book of Boba Fett, and then we had Obi-Wan, and then we had Mandalorian season 3, and now we're finally like back on track. So it seems like it's been a while since I've been excited for some Star
Mhm.
Wars, and I'm really excited about this. I'm really enjoying this show a lot. It, like I said, it's kind of got me. I mean, it's also mostly because I don't sleep, but it got me watching Rebels a little bit because I'm like, well, it's 3 in the morning and I'm not sleepy, so let's watch the Rebels. And next thing you know, it's like 5 or 6 in the morning. I'm like, I gotta go to work. Um,
You didn't want to
so
watch. You didn't want to watch Clone Wars first.
no,
That 150 episodes of Clone Wars
I
before.
did not. I can't say I won't put it on while I'm working. It is an easy thing to have on the iPad sitting next to you and just kind of I could be working and doing stuff depending on what I'm doing. So I'm not saying that I won't, and I don't even know if I'll get through Rebels when it's all said and done, but I am enjoying what I'm watching of Rebels, and that would have never happened if I wasn't interested in Ahsoka and the way that they did it, because they did technically make this show kind of like Rebels season 5. It made me fear of missing out a little bit. I had some FOMO, and I was like, well, as I mentioned earlier, it's like I want to be emotionally attached to these characters. Can this show do that to get more out of Ahsoka? And even watching most of the first season, I understand some of the character motivations. Like I get to at least see this cast all together, with Ezra and what they're doing. So I've definitely been enjoying that. Once again, who knows how far I'll get in it, but it's got me doing that, and it just got me excited about Star Wars again. It's something every time there's a show, I'm always like, oh, I want to read the books, and I want to read the comics, and I want to watch some of these other things, and like learn the history of some of these characters. They keep talking about Admiral Thrawn, and I've heard about him for decades, of being his character and everybody loving him, but I don't know why. And it's just like, well, I know there's like 12 books, there's a shit ton of books out there about this character doing a bunch of things, and I'm just like, man, I want to read some. I feel that like excitement, which I like.
Mhm.
So I'm definitely enjoying Ahsoka. Like I said, I rewatched episodes 3 and 4, and I just really definitely this last one, episode 4, was just a great piece of TV. Like I've watched that, and I was just like, man, this is really good. So I'm enjoying this way more than I thought I was. I didn't
Yeah.
think we were going to be on here talking about episodes 3 and 4. I figured we'd come back at the end
No.
and be like, "What'd you think about the show?" And be like, "It was all right."
Yeah, we did kind of say we weren't sure how we were kind of going to see how it goes. But then after episode 4, that banger of an episode, you kind
Yeah,
of got to like touch base a little bit and give our level now. So now we know we're going into the final 4 very excited about what we're going to see. Um episode 4, and like obviously spoilers out there for if you haven't seen Ahsoka yet, you'll probably we won't be the ones to spoil it to you because it was on the internet that day. Like even Disney, I think, released an updated poster with a new image on it like the next day. So it's like they're not waiting for you guys to watch it. They're gonna put that shit out there, which we've talked about spoiler culture here.
yeah,
It sucks, but it's like, okay, now I know this is a show that I have to watch right away if I do not want the internet to tell me what's happening, especially like the spaces we find ourselves as a podcast on like Twitter. Everyone's talking about Star Wars, so it's like, all right, I'll watch Ahsoka as soon as I can. Got it. Um,
yeah. And luckily, this one I did watch. Like that Tuesday night, I was like, "Well, Ahsoka should be out, so let me just watch this episode and see what they do." And I wasn't doing anything, so I was like, "Cool." So I watched it, and I was like, "Holy shit!"
yeah.
And then the next morning, I went on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh!" And that was when I texted you, and I was like, "Hey, man, if you
Mhm.
can, try to block some words there."
I know.
And you're like, "Too late."
Yeah, happens quick.
Does
Can't look
happen
away.
quick. It
Now
does
we
happen
said
quick.
we both agree episode 3 was really good, as well.
Yep.
Just some kind of like highlights from that. Just her, like I said, I kind of mentioned her out on the damn spaceship with
Yes.
the lightsaber. Go ahead.
Before, just because we are an episode behind, let me give a quick synopsis on what happened in that episode, just so we can get back in
Please.
that place. So this was the episode where Hera tangles with the New Republic politics. So
Mhm.
it was her trying to get the fleet to go meet them, because they knew that trouble was a brewing. And then Ahsoka and Sabine Wren voyaged to the distant planet after they put the tracker on the ship to go find out what Morgan and Ray Stevenson, what's his character's name? Sabin.
Lord Balin.
Yeah, Lord Balin, what they
Mhm.
were up to. So that was kind of where we were at, where they were heading to, where the bad guys' base was, as they were trying to figure out what the next move was. So that's where we were. So highlights
This
of
is
episode 3.
Yeah, like I said, Ahsoka on the plane fighting him with lightsabers is like the highlight of that
Yeah,
show.
that was awesome.
Like deflecting lasers and like doing cartwheel flips in midair and like
Yeah, and
cutting.
taking out a ship,
Right, she was like, "I'll be back." I was like, "What?" And she had
and
her own little
her little custom made helmet. Yeah.
custom made helmet to fit over her head tentacles was
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't even think about this till you were just running through it, like the scene with Hera, General Hera talking to all the senators. The one in the middle, who's like the leader, that
Yeah, Mon
lady,
Mothra.
we know her obviously from stuff. She was in Andor, right?
Yeah. That was when she was like a senator in Andor. She was like a senator.
So she's younger in Andor than
Yes.
because Andor is before this.
Yes, because Andor was before episode 4. Andor was right before Rogue One.
Correct.
So that was with Darth
And
Vader and
then
all that.
right, right.
And this is part of the Mandalorian universe, which is after Return of the Jedi. So
So
this is after the
she's
Empire's been
right.
destroyed.
But it's like the same actress they got to play.
Yeah.
She's still, I mean, there's stuff like that's cool. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Seeing her in Andor as like she's up and coming through the
Yep.
ranks, and then now you see her years later as the head of stuff. It's just like that's the kind of internet connectivity that I like when I get it. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
It's it's just kind of like a special reward. Like I know that person. That person's been around doing other things and kind of start putting it together.
The problem is when you struggle putting it together, because as we've talked about, I have to continuously keep reminding myself where this show takes place. I always want to default back to that time between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, and I always want to dump everything in between 3 and 4. And I'm like, no, we're after 6 now. Like this is after the Empire's fallen, Darth Vader's dead, and I have to like wrap my head around that. Like, technically, the good guys are in charge.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, and I have to continuously keep telling myself that.
This is like the Mandalorian timeline,
Yeah.
isn't it? So
Yes.
like he could conceivably pop up in this show, which would not surprise me.
No, not at
Um,
all.
but yeah, man, that third episode was good. It was just as good as, just kind of building on the first two, getting a little further in the adventure. Now Sabine and Ahsoka are more together, and she's taking on the role of Padawan, like master and apprentice, kind of like the thing we were just talking about. So yeah, man, I episode 3 I liked a lot.
Yeah, I really loved the bad guys in this when we're doing this. We did that whole dog fight in space thing, as you talked about with Ahsoka out on the plane. But even before that, I really loved the style of their ships. They had
Mhm.
a very like World War II propeller plane type feel to them. Even the sound effects, you could picture that being like a World War II dogfight. And it was just a really cool design choice in the way that they did that. And I know George Lucas was always big on World War II type things. And I know there were lots of actual parallels to the Empire and Nazis and all that stuff. And they were just kind of doing a lot, and some of those designs, some of those dogfights then felt like that, and it kind of seemed like a throwback to that. And I really loved the design of those ships for the blonde girl. I don't know character names.
Lord Balin's apprentice. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not sure
her
her name.
apprentice, and to be able to do that, and I really enjoyed that as Shin. Her name was Shin.
I know they did like a magic, the X-Men character there. He did her in New Mutants, didn't they? Where she was played by like whatever. But if they ever did another live action magic, I think she looks just like her, like
Mm,
the comic book character
okay.
in the X-Men. Think about it. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. Sidebar.
Anyway, yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed just that ships and that dogfighting thing. And then I have to walk back something that I said, because like when we were watching the first episode and we're sitting there and the bad guys get the map, might have been the second episode, but the bad guys get the map and they go to like this monument and they put the map on this monument. And I remember going on this rant complaining about where the fuck the monument come from. Is it
Mhm.
just sitting out there on this planet that they could go? How come the good guys didn't know about this? Why was this there? Who built it? Who's going on? And I went on this big rant of being completely confused. Then I'm watching episode 3 and I'm like, oh, between 3 and 4, once again, it might
Mhm.
have these a little mixed up, but realizing that Morgan built that because she's a witch, and has
Mhm.
her own kind of magic, and she built that to work with her hyper ring to read the map to give them the coordinates. So I'm like, oh, so if I would have been patient and actually waited for
That's what I
them
was
to
gonna
tell me
say.
what it was.
If you would have had a little bit of patience, we wouldn't have ever had that complaint.
Yeah, but I was first one and I was coming in with a negative attitude, and
Yeah.
I was like, so I have to walk back and apologize for my statements when I was complaining about the first couple episodes and not understanding what was going on. That was on me, because they did tell me, answered all of those questions for me in these 2 episodes. So that was really cool. So I definitely enjoyed that. So I wrote down, I need to pay attention to the story and stop writing the story in my head.
It takes a real man to apologize, Chris. I'm
Yeah,
proud of
I, I,
you for
I try when I can. I'm working on
uh-huh.
being a man enough to get my mustache. So I gotta keep working on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, episode 3 was really good. I do feel like rewatching it that it was definitely set up for episode 4, which was kind of like a banger of an episode, and it really just kind of, as we always talk about with all of these, you can count almost every Disney Plus show. You can almost guarantee now episode 4 of every season is going to be big, because Marvel, Disney Plus, they seem like they map these things around the first 3 episodes or build. Episode 4 is the one that just kind of like, oh shit. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what we got in this one, when they, killed Ahsoka.
Right. For a
I
second.
was like, oh shit. There were a lot of moments in that episode that made me kind of sit up and go, what's
Yeah.
happening right now?
Well, we can count all the awesome stuff that happened in this episode, like the forest fight between Ahsoka and when she killed Merrick,
No,
and
the droid fight. Just talk about the droid
I
fight.
know that's your favorite.
That fight was awesome. Like I didn't see it coming, and watching those two droids just beat the shit out of each other, even though they're metal. I understand they don't have souls. That's fine.
They
Um,
do have souls. I don't care. They're artificial intel. They have artificial intelligence
they have
souls.
artificial souls, all right.
Yeah.
But like just the way that it was, mostly just the way that it was filmed, the sound effects, and you could just tell it was like practically done. Like you could tell they were either people in suits or animatronics. Like it didn't feel CG. If it was CG, awesome, good for them, man. That they got it over me. That's great. That's
Hmm.
great. But it was just awesome the way that it was put together. Even rewatching it again today, I was like, damn, man, it just hit so hard. Like that's the way that they had that sound done, the sound mixing. It was like bing, bing, boom. It
Yeah.
just sounded hilarious. And it just looked so cool. And I just loved that droid fight. I was like watching it again today. I was getting amped up. I'm like, it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah. And then like when then finally Ahsoka and Sabine are alerted to, you know, he's in trouble, the droid, and they
Yeah, I
pop
know. How
out
sad was it? Him going, help, help.
right.
And then
And
other droids covering his speaker.
when I heard that, I was like, no, don't kill him.
Yeah.
No, but then they popped out of the ship, and that's them finally working together and fighting side by side for the first time, and that was really cool. Like Sabine is a Mandalorian, so she's got her armor is like, she's got the Mandalorian helmet and
Hmm.
uses her blaster a lot, and then you got Ahsoka on the other side who's this Jedi, even though she's not a Jedi, but she knows the Jedi way, using the Force and cutting people up with lightsabers. I'm just like going back and forth, like the clash of styles of them, but they're like a team. It was just like, this is cool, man.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I know at one point like Ahsoka like grabbed the one dude, pulled him in front of Sabine, and Sabine's like shot him, and I was like, damn.
yeah, it was pretty dope. Uh, which then led to the part of them running in the woods, and like I said, that's when they have their fight with the apprentice girl, and then I guess his name was Merrick, who's had that mask on, who
Yeah,
people
one of
have
the
been
Inquisitors.
people have been theorizing. I don't know if you saw the internet theories of like, he's somebody that is that Ezra? Is that somebody that's going to be somebody they're going to take off the mask? Is it the guy from Jedi Survivor, the video games? Is he now in this? And like, it just turned out to be nothing because Ahsoka killed him
Yeah,
real
and he
quick. And
exploded like a vampire
all right, I
on
was just like,
Buffy.
wah wah, everyone's theories out the door. Um,
Hey, I thought it was too. I was expecting. I
well,
thought they were going to do the bait and switch with the idea because I played with my history. Like I played Fallen Jedi, which was a video game. My history with the Inquisitors were all the third sisters, like we talked about with Obi-Wan. There was the one third sister, and like
mhm,
they were like kind of the Inquisitors of, and I could be 100% wrong because I don't know Star Wars lore, but my head, so I was like, that has to be female. And I
mhm.
thought they were going to do a Taskmaster's thing where you're thinking it's a dude, you're thinking it's a dude. Now I'm sitting there like, no, that's a girl. And they're going to do that. And then they obviously didn't. But, and then of course, in these couple episodes, he talked. So I knew
Right.
it wasn't. I mean,
Well,
voice
it was kind of like
modulators could still
a
be there, but
voice box thing. Yeah.
I could have still been right. But
Yeah.
that wasn't the point, or
Yeah.
it didn't matter. But
So that was definitely a moment in the woods. And then I'm sure there's some others in the middle, but then I'm just getting distracted by how awesome the lightsaber fight between Lord Balin and Ahsoka was
yeah,
on that mountaintop, on that hilltop in the witches, little thing.
the
Um,
map.
so much like lead up to it, like the way when he's kind of like they're having words between each other, but then they both pull their lightsabers, and like Ahsoka's changing stances, and then he's got his stance, and then she changes it again. Just like, man, they're doing a lot of posturing, but I feel good.
Yeah,
This has to be awesome, just the way they're building this up. It just took
yeah,
so long to finally get to it.
yeah.
Um, question: why isn't Ahsoka using both lightsabers for this? I don't know. You have two. Why not use them to your advantage? She did the same thing in the fight versus Merrick. Like, why are you only using one? Don't you have
Right.
two? Isn't that your thing? Um, but yeah, she's jumping off. She's jumping off things, and he's got a different fighting style, more of like a big bruiser. Like he's just coming in, swinging that fucking thing like a giant barbarian.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man,
He
that's
definitely had like where she almost had this like ninja,
mhm.
like we're flowing different stances and different things, where Balin seems like he's like samurai, like very stoic and very just like just like educated, like this is my stance and I know how to. And even like it says a lot like Ahsoka was the one to attack first. Like there's a lot of
Right.
just kind of like Asian martial arts
Well,
like inspiration, which is always in all of these shows with I was gonna say Greg Kinnear, but I know that's not right. Who's the guy? Dave Filoni. Like
it's
all of these
drinking here.
all of these shows, we talked about Mandalorian being heavily influenced by clearly Lone Wolf and Cub. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they pretty much ripped off Lone Wolf and Cub for the idea of the show, and then they definitely, when they hit into season 2, they went a little bit more Western with it. But it's always had that kind of like Ronin samurai feel, and this one,
Sure.
like I said, no different. And yeah, watching Ahsoka do all of these more, a little bit more like stances that reminded me of like more ninja based. But yeah, Balin always reminded me of like samurai, just like I'm very proper
Yeah,
and like
she was using the agility and jumping off stuff and going for quick strikes.
yeah,
Meanwhile, he's just like swinging that thing around, like trying to take her head off.
yeah.
Um,
But I
it,
loved when that fight it like
mhm.
built, and I loved the idea of when Shin showed back up, Ahsoka is like, oh my god, Sabine is dead. Like that was 100%
Yeah.
what she thought. And then to see like when she threw Shin across the wall, like to see Balin's like his whole style shifted. And he went
Mhm.
from like being cool and collected, and when Ahsoka's like going for the map and doing stuff, you could tell he got frustrated, and like he started coming at her hard, and just the way that that fight really had a lot going on, it was just so cool.
Yeah, and it has changed. It shows like kind of the. I like how they're looking at the fact that they made that fight a little different. Like every lightsaber fight you're used to seeing is just like both people are just straight up balanced sword fighters.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like seeing this clash of styles between two people.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes it more interesting. It's not like a, Obi-Wan Darth Vader fight where they're both just like fighting the same exact way with each other. You know what I mean? It's just it was just a nice little change, a little diversion from what we're used to seeing with
Mm-hmm.
lightsaber fights that made it more interesting.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
Hmm.
awesome. And then it like led up to basically Sabine showing back up. Ahsoka's kind of happy, and Balin's like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm tired of messing with you. And he just knocked her off the cliff. And I was like, oh shit.
Ahsoka's dad show's over.
Ahsoka's dead. And who knows? But yeah, they and then Sabine to like, Ahsoka saying destroy the map, which I rewatching was really cool because I caught it the first time and I kind of saw that where we were headed, especially when we got to this point. But like all the foreshadowing that went into Sabine having to make this decision. Like Ahsoka said earlier in the episode to her, basically like, hey, we don't have the map. We're basically lost. We don't know where they're going. They have the hyper train to get there. They're ahead of us. We're gonna have to make a decision whether it's if we don't go to Ezra, nobody does.
Mhm.
And Sabine like that I don't accept that. It won't come to that. And Ahsoka even says in there, like, I think it already did. And she was
Mhm.
100% right on that. And then even there was another scene later where Ahsoka's like, hey, are you okay? Like she keeps asking Sabine that whole episode, like, is there something you want to talk to me about? Are you okay? What's wrong? How, like she could tell that something was wrong. And so to see it build to that moment where you have Balin, Ahsoka's dead,
In
Sabine is
their
holding
minds,
the
yeah.
map. The what?
In their mind, she
In
is
their
right.
mind, yeah. I mean, it's our mind as far as we're
Yeah.
aware. Like,
Right.
I don't know what's happening. Um, but like Ahsoka's dead. Her last words were destroy the map, and Balin sitting there saying, "Do what your master says." But he
Mhm.
knows, and there's a moment where he pauses in that, and you can see him like almost like tap into the force, and he just like completely reads everything about Sabine. He knows all of the right places to poke her, and he just walks up and he's just like, you miss Ezra, don't you? And you're just like, damn, he just like reached into her soul and decided to
Mhm.
throw everything that's bothering her in her face in the most like calming way, like and manipulative way of just like, I'm gonna pull all of these strings and get exactly what I want. And he just did it so freaking good. Man, it was awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. And I've seen some stuff online about people saying, did Sabine make the right decision? Do you agree with what she did? Should she have destroyed the map, like Ahsoka said? I think it's pretty easy. Like she couldn't. If she destroys the map, she's dead either way. So it's like you might as well roll the dice or something, and he said he gives you his word, no harm will come to you. Okay, now you got to see what's going to
Yep.
happen and kind of go for this ride. You destroy the map. What's your next step?
Well,
You know what I mean?
the thing is there is no next step, but it's like, hey, like Ahsoka said, it's if we can't go, nobody goes. So it's one of those things where it's like, hey, I'm sacrificing myself to stop these people from going and bringing back Thrawn. So my sacrifice isn't going to be in vain. Like, yes, he's going to kill me. I'm dead, but they can't go get Thrawn now.
She also wants to see Ezra again.
But yes, she can't let Ezra go.
Right.
And that's what we kind of talked about earlier, where it's just like, well, I'm okay with it. Like, I understand that he's important to her, and they've fleshed that out enough for me, so I'm cool with her decision. And I just like the way that they did it, because this is a moment where I would technically normally be annoyed, but
Okay.
like, she should have just destroyed the map.
Yeah.
And
but then like I said, where you go from there is
oh no, she's dead. Yeah, it's a sacrifice. It's 100% sacrifice of just like, hey, I'm sacrificing my life to stop them. And that's, I mean, that's the only play. She either gives him the map and sees what happens, or she destroys the map and at least dies knowing she stopped them for now. Or for all intents and purposes, she can go to her grave with that satisfaction. I'm a spiteful person, so part of me would be like, I'd like to destroy the thing right in front of him and be like, and
kill me, do it now.
Do
what
it
are you
now.
waiting
Do
for?
it. Do it. So it's one of those things. But yeah, no, it was wonderfully done. Like Ray Stevenson just knocked it out of the park.
It did.
With just really reaching in, and you could see it in even Sabine's like face, and you could just see that it was a really hard decision for her, and the way that they put it together was awesome, man. Watching it again too was just that much more powerful, and it was just a great scene. It was one of the best Star Wars scenes I think I've seen in a long time.
Oh yeah, it's pretty damn good, man. I agree.
In episodes in general, like it was a solid ass episode of just the way that it built, the way it went from one fight to the next fight. You had Morgan up in the hyper ring trying to count down and trying to get the coordinates so she can go do her thing. You had Hera and the people when they're disobeying the council's wishes and they're trying to rush and get there. So you had them doing their thing. You had Hera's little kid kind of just like riding co-pilot, like out for an adventure.
Not to mention the cameo of that starfighter who's been in a couple different things, the old guy.
Oh yeah, I want to say his name is like Wedge,
something like that. He's been in a couple things here now. It's like when you see him, you're just like, yeah,
he was in the original Star Wars.
Yeah, he was.
He was in the original Star Wars, and they brought him back for like one of the Mandalorian episodes, I think.
He's been on one of these Disney Plus things. It might have out of Obi-Wan or some one of these things.
Might have been Obi-Wan. Yeah, he was on one of them because I saw a tweet where they were talking about. I think it was Mandalorian because they showed his poster for Mandalorian and they reused the picture for Ahsoka.
They didn't even take his picture again.
They didn't even take a new picture. They just took the picture and put it on an Ahsoka poster. So
that's funny.
That's kind of funny. But yeah, exactly. I thought it was really. I know you said you watched that documentary, the little 8-minute thing. I was really thrown back when they showed like a scene because obviously they weren't filming Ahsoka with all of the clips with her with like Ahsoka.
Sure.
They were filming her episode in Mandalorian season 2. And then when I saw her fighting Morgan, I was like, wait, Morgan was on that show too? So then I'm like, what the hell did they talk about? Did they set up this whole show in that episode? And so
probably they probably didn't. We weren't really paying attention to it. But
I went back and watched it today. So
okay.
I kind of fast forwarded through and I really only watched those parts. Like I didn't really sit and watch. I didn't go through her training Grogu and doing a bunch of shit like that. I just fast forwarded through most of that, but I watched like her going to Morgan and saying, hey, I want what I need, what you have, I want. And she kept basically wanting to know where your master is. Where's your master? And that's the information. And then they had their big fight at the end. And then she asks her at the end, she was like, after she like kind of got the best of her, she's like, where's your master? Where's Thrawn? So that's when they said it. So then obviously this show picks up after that because the show started with her having detained Morgan and learning about the map. So I'm like, okay, you didn't need to watch it or see it. They gave you enough in the scroll, but it was kind of cool to go back and say some of that. Now, to answer a previous question, I think we talked about in our last Ahsoka lesson, I changed my answer. And if I could have a lightsaber color, I think I want a white one. Like those white lightsabers are badass.
Yeah, why are they? I don't know, because they represent light so much. It's just like
I don't.
a clean. It's just a clean looking
Very clean.
lightsaber, you know.
It's very
Uh,
clean. Just kind of looks really. It just looks super cool. And I'm watching her like fling around these two lightsabers, and I'm just like, man, looks
yeah,
badass.
yeah, it's pretty nice. White's
Yeah.
pretty nice.
So I'm definitely
Um,
enjoying those.
I like it.
So now
I'm
the
kind of
question is, because
yeah.
they announced this week, episode 5 is going to be shown in theaters. Are you going?
Well, we're not even going to talk about the cliffhanger yet, huh? We're going to talk
Oh
about
my
episode
God, I
5.
forgot. I forgot that we still had more. So walk it back. Hold on to the answer to that question. I'm going to ask it again in a second.
Yeah.
We then picked up with Ahsoka
Being alive, yay!
being
Kind of,
alive,
maybe.
kind of, but then she
Question
ran
mark.
into Anakin,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody lost their minds.
Yeah, that's the big thing. The internet couldn't keep to themselves for more than an hour,
Mm-hmm.
which understandable. I mean, it's Hayden Christensen back again for another round of Star Wars, and this one they kind of kept secret. Um, it was kind of publicized that he was going to be in Obi-Wan, but I don't think anybody knew for sure he was going to be on this show.
Yeah, I
I kind
can't
of think
remember.
I don't think so. I think it kind of that's why it was such a big deal, because people are like, oh yeah, like he is obviously very important to the Ahsoka character. He's her, he was her master. He's the one who trained her in the ways of the Jedi, and obviously you appreciate that more if you watch the Clone Wars. But
Yeah, and like they said in that documentary, like she is the only person he ever trained.
well, that's all he would have had time to anyway,
Well,
because he didn't make it very far as long as a
but
Jedi.
he never had like a apprentice on the dark side. He never like
Right.
he never went and trained anyone else. Like
True.
Ahsoka is it. Now, this is where it comes back to the I really want to know why she walked away. You know, Balin was talking to her about walking away, and she's like, I'm not here to talk about my past. I'm like, talk about it a little.
Yeah. It seems like now we might get into that because they're going to be having some conversations.
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
it's cool. It's cool. Just also like you can tell now Hayden Christensen is obviously interested in just being part of this.
Yeah.
Again,
Why
like
wouldn't you?
I mean, well, yeah, especially for him. What else are you doing? Um, I mean, he was all
Doing
over
Comic
Obi.
Cons.
Yeah, he was all in Obi-Wan, and now he's coming back for this, a willing participant. It's just kind of cool to see him. They did use obviously some CGI to young him up, which is more commonplace nowadays to do, so
Yeah.
it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how that conversation goes, which makes season or episode 5 must watch. I
And
think.
explains why they're putting it in theaters, as I just mentioned before we talk
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, from my understanding, they're in the world between worlds, but because I didn't watch any of these things, I don't know what any of that means. I
Mhm.
know one of the last episodes of Rebels was called The World Between Worlds, so I know it's important and it's a thing, but I don't know what any of that means, and I guess we're gonna get some explanation next week. So I'm super pumped about that. Like I said, I'm watching nothing else on TV, but I'm pumped up for next Tuesday to watch Ahsoka episode 5.
Me too, man.
I just wish I can go see it in the big screen.
I
I would
know.
100% do it if I could, but it's not showing anywhere. It's like closest is Dallas. I'm not driving to Dallas to watch a 40-minute TV episode.
All right. There is one playing in Chicagoland somewhere, and I waited too long to try to join that wait list. And I should have known, like, if they're only showing it in one theater, and I'm sure there's plenty of chatter and talk about this show, like buzz about it, that I was like, I'm sure that thing probably filled up right away. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, man, that ending was fun. Makes you excited. Some of these Star Wars or Disney shows in like they're not shy about using a cliffhanger at the end to kind of hook you and get you pumped and excited to come back for the next one. Mandalorian did that a few times. Just like I'm ready for the next one now. I gotta wait a week.
Yeah.
So while they don't always get the TV format, sometimes they do. When it comes to stuff like that, they understand and
Yeah.
it works and gets people like us who just excites us. We're ready for it.
I'm
Yeah,
so
man.
ready for it.
Yeah.
Like I love this. I really am getting to the point where I'm like, man, I love this show. I just want to watch more of it. And like I said, now I'm all energized on Star Wars. I'm just sitting there like, give me more Star Wars. Put it in my veins. I want Star Wars.
Go back and watch Mandalorian season 3, man. You never finished it.
I know. I'm 100%. As of right now, I'm 100% like planning on it. Like I'm just sitting there. I was talking with. I cannot remember. It was another podcast, and I hate myself that I can't remember their name. I was talking with somebody on Twitter, and that was what he was talking even about, like rewatching Obi-Wan. And he was like, he said it works so much better like the second time you watch it. He was like, it's a good like second time watch. And I'm like, man, I probably would enjoy it more with having the whole story and trying not to write it in my head and be like, oh, it would have been cool if they did this, and they didn't. So
Yeah.
one of those things, but who knows if I'll actually do it. I don't know how long this hype train will last for me.
I gotta say too, like we talked about it privately. Like Dave Filoni, I think it's Filoni. And then also getting like an appreciation for him watching that Master and Apprentice thing, and him basically being like the apprentice of George Lucas.
Right.
Like he kind of learned from him. They worked on Rebels together and
They did
Craig,
Clone
Clone Wars.
Wars.
That's what I mean. Yeah, and they like worked on all that stuff together. And he was on set. George Lucas came to set the Mandalorian episode where Ahsoka first appeared because he kind of wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, he
And
created Ahsoka.
Yeah, him being the voice behind this show, Dave Filoni, and like getting to do these characters, I think, and he did season 1 of Mandalorian, which was their best season.
Yeah,
I think. He was kind of involved in season 2, but just like I think directed an episode and kind of handed it off a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know, but I think he had more to do with season 1. But man, that guy, I don't know. Now it's like if his name is associated with something with Star Wars, I'm like, that's worth a watch. Just after these, you know what I mean? Him just he seems like he gets the universe, maybe I don't want to say better than anybody else, but he gets it to this just different level than other people and just makes it more interesting. So kudos to that guy for this.
like I said, I think he's been involved in so much because they're like, yeah, you talk about like J.J. Abrams. Okay, he did 2 movies. Cool. Like fucking Filoni's did hundreds of hours of Star Wars. Like so much of current Star Wars like lore is built on the Clone Wars and Rebels. Like you had 4 seasons of Rebels and 7 seasons of Clone Wars. Like that's a lot of content that is built around all of this stuff. And I mean, Mandalorian, yeah, has its story and it's about Grogu and it's this, that, and the other, but there's still a lot of, they brought in Katie Sackhoff's character, Bo-Katan, I think her name is. She was from Rebels. It's like she got her live action debut. A lot of characters, and that's what we talked about when we were like complaining about Boba Fett. There was that Cade something or other.
Yeah.
Who was like the bounty hunter, and we're both sitting there like, that dude looked badass. I want to know more about him, but we'd have to watch this other show. So there's so much that influences even like Mandalorian that comes from Filoni. And I just think he has so much more to do with what current Star Wars looks like for most people versus just like a couple of movies, like Rian Johnson. Everyone hates The Last Jedi, but that is such a small footprint of what they did in that movie. And that's all Skywalkers anyway. That's not even the universe. So it's just, I think he just has his fingers in way more. And I think he is a lot more influential than some people might realize.
Yeah. He's the big voice right now of Star Wars.
And yeah, I agree with you, man. It's just like
him being the guy who's directing. Yeah, him being the guy who's directing all these is great. I love it. Keep it up.
Well, and when, like you said, watching that documentary, it was one of those things. I mean, it was only 8 minutes, but I got a lot out of it. And it was just seeing like the passion and the dedication he's putting to making sure he's bringing all of these people to life properly and doing everybody justice and telling the story he wants to tell. And like a lot of people said, and I've seen a lot of articles saying that this is Rebels season 5. And there's just a lot there's a lot on the line for it, but there's a lot to build. And how do you make it for people like us who didn't watch Rebels? And I just think he's doing a really great job. More than I imagined watching the first 2. Something about 3 and 4 just kind of stepped out and just like,
so far, so good. Keep it up is all I'll say.
So far, so good. We're halfway. We got another 4 to go. I'm assuming we're going to get a lot of Anakin and Ahsoka in the World Between Worlds in the next one. And I'm imagining, because they're going for theaters, we're getting Admiral Thrawn.
You got to assume at some point.
I mean, the bad guys went to get him, and the good guys can't follow because they don't know where to go. So and they don't have a hyper ring or the directions. So you imagine that they're going to go get Thrawn and bring him back. I mean, that's the whole point of the show, really.
Yeah.
So
Is
I'm
that why?
imagining he's coming back, and we're going to have some kind of cliffhanger in this show.
Yeah. Is that why we're showing episode 5 in theaters too?
I
Another big
imagine.
moment.
I think it's.
You
I think
know.
it's. I think it's Anakin and Thrawn are both going to be in this episode.
Whew, we'll find out, man. We'll look
And like I
back and
said,
see if we
Thrawn.
were right.
I know shit about Thrawn, but I do know he is a big deal. Like I know he is like underneath Vader. Like he's one of the only people that like Vader had respect for. I know there's a lot of backstory with him, but he was in the original. He was in the original like legacy novels that came out before Disney bought Star Wars, and he was like the main protagonist for the. There was a book trilogy that was done called Heir to the Empire, and it was after Return of the Jedi, after Vader was dead, and it was the story of Admiral Thrawn picking up the pieces and continuing the fight. And then all of that legacy stuff died when Disney bought Star Wars. But one of the only characters they brought from that world that never made it into a movie, but came back in the new Star Wars like canon was Thrawn. I'm sure there are other ones, but I know he was one of the main ones. But I know like you had some like, Tarkin who was in, Rogue One, and you had some people that still obviously loop around. But for someone, a character that never made it in any kind of mainstream Star Wars and was only in books, to then jump from the legacy books to new books and said, we want this guy to still be part of our like canon. That's a big deal. So it's like, I'm aware of that. It's a big deal for this character, and I'm excited to see him. I know he's obviously coming.
Yeah.
That's obviously the whole point of the way that the story's going. But I like the darker tone. This almost has that Empire Strikes Back feel of just like the good guys really can't get a leg up. Yeah, they can't catch a break. They are really playing from behind this whole series, and I'm here for it, man. Like I said, I'm enjoying this way more than I thought.
I got my last thought before we start. It sounds like we're closing up here in a second. I'm excited to agree everything with everything you just said there. But just one little nagging question that always goes in my head, and this is just me being like a obvious realist, sometimes not letting the whimsy and wonder and fantasy of it all.
Yeah.
How come people who know how to use the Force don't just use the Force all the time in fights? How come Ahsoka and Lord Balin didn't just have a Force fight? What do you need lightsabers for? You both have the Force. Just throw rocks at each other. Just try to throw each other against walls. Just constantly be using the Force, and it's just a giant telepathic battle. Like they use it every now and then as like a crutch in a battle to like kind of move something or throw something at someone, but then we just go back to a sword fight. You have magic powers. Use them on each other all the time. Why aren't you always forcing? You don't need the lightsabers.
Two things.
Oh my God, he has an answer.
One, they did. If I remember correctly, they did that a lot in the Obi-Wan show. I felt like Vader was throwing rocks constantly.
Okay.
Two, I believe my answer to that question would be the honor, the samurai code of honor, and that you have these sword fights. Same reason we had sword fights. There were still people having sword fights after there were guns. And be like, well, I could come to this with a gun, but I'm going to come with my sword, and we're going to do this like men honorably. And I feel like it
might be part of it.
But yes, no, I agree with you. Realistically, yes. If you could throw shit around, yeah, there'd be no reason. I'd be like, fuck that. I don't need a lightsaber.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw everything around me at you.
Yes.
I'm going to raise you up in the sky and just keep bouncing you up and down off the ground.
Yeah. I'm going to basketball you all the way to the hole.
I know visually that's not as appealing to people. Everyone who doesn't love a good sword fight, especially when it's done with laser swords.
Yeah. Visually it would be disastrous. That's like watching a Marvel show.
Yeah. That's like watching Professor X, and I'm trying to think of another telepath who's evil, like the White Queen, just fight each other with
throwing waves at each other. Like I said, it's a lot of the superhero stuff when it goes down to like giant beams.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not as entertaining to watch. So yes, that's part of it. But yes, realistically, you're 100% right. Like if you could
Okay.
telepathically throw stuff at people,
No need for a sword. That's all
no
I'm
need for a
saying.
sword. No, there's no need for a
Okay.
sword. If you have
That's
the
just my
ability
that's
to
my
just who has the strongest mind, who has the
yeah.
strongest connection to the force.
Yeah, that's just my little rant about it. But
I hear you. I
anyway,
like it. I like it.
okay.
I like it. I was just channeling my inner Filoni, and I feel like he would have an answer to that. We should ask him on Twitter.
Okay. How come why do lightsabers exist?
Why
Anyway.
do lightsabers exist when they could just throw giant rocks that are always conveniently around?
Right.
So, Ahsoka episodes 3 and 4, halfway through the season. We are both enjoying the show a lot. Hopefully, you are enjoying it as well. If you've made it this far into this conversation, hopefully you are. If you weren't watching it and deciding, I don't want to watch it, but I'm going to listen to these guys talk about it. Hopefully, we pumped you up. Like, we're excited about this, and we don't get excited about a lot of stuff. So, definitely check it out. I definitely think it's some of the best Star Wars since at least Andor. And Andor is one of the only things I've enjoyed of like the Disney. I mean, I'm fine with what they've done, but Andor was like peak,
Mm-hmm.
and this is really
This is
challenging it.
touching it.
This
This is
is
touching
really
it.
touching it. I'm
Yeah.
really enjoying this more than I thought I was, and it feels like I said, what I'm excited about is that it almost makes me like thirsty for Star Wars, which is a good. It's a good feeling. I love Star Wars. Like I've always loved it, and I've always wanted to have this feeling about Star Wars. I want to be a Star Wars geek.
Mm-hmm.
So let me be a Star Wars geek, and Ahsoka's letting me, and I'm
It's
having a
got you.
blast.
It's got you watching Rebels. I mean, come on. So,
I'm fucking. I mean, that's mostly because I can't sleep. But if
but
I could
also,
sleep, I wouldn't have watched nearly as much Rebels as I am.
sure.
But that's a whole other problem that we're not going to get into here on this show because that is not what we are about. Talking about Chris's deep-seated mental issues. Uh, so,
We'll talk off air.
yeah. So anyway, what do you think about Ahsoka?
Hmm.
Let us know. As I said earlier, raisedageek@gmail.com and any social media platform. If you look up Raised a Geek, chances are you're going to find us. So do that. Find us, follow us, rate us, help us get our expanse out there and get heard and seen because I think we got some good takes. So definitely check out everything that we have and join the conversation. We'd love to hear what some of you all think about Ahsoka. So definitely reach out and let us know. But Don, I think you gave your final thought, which was making Star Wars real.
Yes.
All right. Well, then I think that's going to do us for this week. So for Raised a Geek, I'm Chris.
And I'm Don.
And thanks for checking out the show.
Where geek is all we speak.